First off, I want to let Jackie over at End Times know that you are appreciated. God has blessed you, although I know for myself, you are more humble than you let on. Don't for 1 second let all of those that have a vile mouth offend you. I can see that it's causing a stir because of all the negative responses. Keep praying for them, Jackie. They are the ones that need these messages the most. Now, for the rest of you, Christians, atheists, and patriots, why are you playing right into their hands? They are succeeding at dumping you down and dividing you amongst yourselves. They are laughing at you. Christians, stop judging and putting down what other Christians say. Who are you to judge your fellow brother or sister? How do you know your message is any more true than the next? Stop it. We are all his children. Atheists, although you are correct in the fact that there is no physical proof of God's existence. I really don't know if you're a big gambler, but what if you're wrong? Don't you think you will be in worse shape than the Christian? Just a thought. My dear patriots, be fearless and continue to be the watchman. Just remember, it was he that allowed you to see where others are blind. The common mistake is thinking you can accomplish anything on your own without his help. Here is a bit of encouragement to you all from George Washington. There is an opinion that parties in free countries are useful checks upon the administration of the government, and serve to keep alive the spirit of liberty. Is within certain limits is probably true, and in governments of monarchical caste, patriotism may look with indulgence, if not with favor, upon the spirit of party. But in those of the popular character, in governments purely elective, it is a spirit not to be encouraged. From their natural tendency, it is certain there will always be enough of that spirit for every salutary purpose. And there being constant danger of excess, the effort ought to be by force of public opinion, to mitigate and assuage it. A fire not to be quenched, it demands a uniform vigilance, to prevent its bursting into a flame, lest, instead of warming, it should consume. Of all the dispositions and habits which lead to political prosperity, religion, and morality are indispensable supports. In vain would that men claim the tribute of patriotism, who should labor to subvert these great pillars of human happiness, these firmest props of the duties of men and citizens. The mere politician, equally with the pious man, ought to respect and to cherish them. A volume could not trace all their connections with private and public felicity. Let it simply be asked, where is the security for property, for reputation, for life, if the sense of religious obligation desert the oaths which are the instruments of investigation in courts of justice? And let us with caution indulge the supposition that morality can be maintained without religion. Whatever may be conceded to the influence of refined education on minds of peculiar structure, reason, and experience both forbid us to expect that national morality can prevail in exclusion of religious principle. It is our true policy to steer clear of permanent alliances with any portion of the foreign world, so far, I mean, as we are now at liberty to do it, for let me not be understood as capable of patronizing infidelity to existing engagements. I hold the maxim no less applicable to public than to private affairs, that honesty is always the best policy. I repeat it, therefore, let those engagements be observed in their genuine sense. But, in my opinion, it is unnecessary, and would be unwise to extend them. The nation, prompted by ill will and resentment, sometimes impels to war the government, contrary to the best calculations of policy. The government sometimes participates in the national propensity, and adopts through passion what reason would reject. At other times it makes the animosity of the nation subservient to projects of hostility instigated by pride, ambition, and other sinister and pernicious motives. The peace often, sometimes perhaps the liberty, of nations, has been the victim. So likewise, a passionate attachment of one nation for another produces a variety of evils. Sympathy for the favorite nation, facilitating the illusion of an imaginary common interest in cases where no real common interest exists, and infusing into one the enmities of the other, betrays the former into a participation in the quarrels and wars of the latter without adequate inducement or justification. It leads also to concessions to the favorite nation of privileges denied to others, which is apt doubly to injure the nation making the concessions, by unnecessarily parting with what ought to have been retained, and by exciting jealousy, ill will, and a disposition to retaliate in the parties from whom equal privileges are withheld. And it gives to ambitious, corrupted, facility to betray or sacrifice the interests of their own country, without odium, sometimes even with popularity, gilding, with the appearances of a virtuous sense of obligation, a commendable deference for public opinion, or a laudable zeal for public good, the base or foolish compliances of ambition, corruption, or infatuation. Against the insidious wiles of foreign influence, I conjure you to believe me, fellow citizens, the jealousy of a free people ought to be constantly awake, since history and experience prove that foreign influence is one of the most baneful foes of republican government. Real patriots who may resist the intrigues of the favored are liable to become suspected and odious, while its tools and dupes usurp the applause and confidence of the people, to surrender their interests. With all that said, I would like to commend all that stand in favor of God and counter T. It is a noble end of war that must be met with great courage. Hold your heads high, and may God not let us stumble. Do not mock those that try to give you truth, for some day you'll be dependent on the very ones you mock.